Grounded 2 is now available in early access, and I'm here to tell you my experience with the game and whether you should check it out for yourself. Short answer, if you like Grounded 1, then yes.
You're kind of cute.
So when the original Grounded first came into early access, I remember trying that game and thinking to myself, this game seems neat, but it's not quite there yet. So I waited until the game hit 1.0, and then when I finally did play it, it became one of my favorite games of the last several years. I mention this because I think it's important to keep in mind the context of how much Grounded 1 changed over the course of early access, because I suspect a very similar thing will happen with Grounded 2. In its current form, I think Grounded 2 is some really good fun, and there is a lot going on for early access. It took me about 34 hours to see the entire slice of what is available in Brook Hollow Park, and even then, I could spend dozens more hours perfecting my bases and finding every little secret. Grounded 2 has also felt very familiar to me. Sure, we have a new map, we have new bug types, we have a new story, but many of its biomes and enemy types and crafting components all feel extremely familiar, if not downright the same as the first game. Again, it's fun, it's just deeply, deeply familiar. And my hope is that eventually, over the course of Grounded 2's early access, it will evolve and change in the same way that Grounded 1 did. So if you love Grounded 1 and simply want more of that right now, you're gonna have a good time. If you had your fill of Grounded 1 and were hoping for something a little more substantial, it might be worth waiting for more updates.
Well, we're still in the park, but we're small. Like 2 years ago small.
All right, so Grounded 2 takes place 2 years after the original game. You play as the same kids. They've been shrunk again. Crazy. This time you're in Brook Hollow Park. There was like a ceremony that went wrong, and you've been shrunk and you don't know why, and you have to figure it out. Classic Grounded stuff. The original game's story was decent, extremely minimal, I would say. There were only really like a few characters you would interact with, and it was very sparse. The story in this game so far feels a little more substantial, although it is still minimal in the way the first game is, which I think is the right call. It doesn't get in the way, but I like what they're doing with it. The big thing this time is that you have a proper antagonist in the form of the masked stranger.
Hi. Don't be too afraid. Not yet. Your Scabby 2K was so easy to hack into. I can use it as a PA system.
They're a fellow kid who is also in the park and seems to have taken it over as their own, and they don't like that you're there, and they're sending remote control bugs after you, and they're just being a little brat about it. I like what they're doing with this character. They're shrouded in a lot of mystery. Obviously, they're setting up reveals for later, but so far, having an actual antagonist that kind of you interact with throughout gives the game a little bit more of a focus than the first game did, where the first game was very much about the backyard being the antagonist. Since you kind of know what to expect a little bit in this one, having a proper antagonist is a little more intriguing. You also interact a lot with Sloan Beaumont, who is the new CEO of Ominent, which is the evil corporation that shrunk you in the first game and is involved in this one. She's like the new CEO who's trying to like reform the company, and by reform I mean just like be like 10% less evil.
I'm not saying Ominent is good, but as long as I am someone in charge, we're at least neutral.
I think Sloan is like a really funny, charming character. Her voice actor is fantastic. I genuinely love talking and interacting with her. This game is really funny, and it's nice to see some of that like classic Obsidian wit and sharp writing present in this game, even if at the end of the day it is still you know, more sparse than your typical Obsidian RPG. One of the biggest changes to Grounded 2 is the map is entirely brand new, Brook Hollow Park. It was actually made in conjunction with iOS Montreal. I'm not sure exactly how big it is compared to the first game, but it seems huge. The portion available in early access is about a fourth of the final space, and it felt like what I explored was like half the size of the first game. So like there's a lot going on here. It's also a really well-made map. Like if you were concerned about like a different developer like handling the map, don't be. It absolutely has that Grounded flavor and flair and like feels good. It's fun to explore. My favorite thing about Grounded as a game is the unknown of what you're going to find in the map, and exploring the map and discovering it is just as satisfying here. The thing that's a little disappointing so far is that much of the map is very similar in terms of biomes to the first game. So obviously things are rearranged and they're in different places, but it's like, hey, you still have a hedge, you got a berry patch, there's gonna be a pond. They've mentioned a pond, it's not in the game yet, but there will be a pond. You'll have like anthills, and you have areas with spiders. Sure, there is some differences, but it's all known. And there isn't anything that feels truly different, with the exception of the ice cream carts. The ice cream cart is this labyrinthian dungeon where you explore this tipped over ice cream cart, and you have to like prep your gear, and you have to get a specific torch so that you don't freeze to death. And it's this like labyrinth of ice cream and chocolate chips and scorpions for some reason. Do scorpions like cold? Are they cool with that? I thought they were in the desert, but maybe they love ice cream. The ice cream cart feels fantastic. It is exactly what I'm looking for when it comes to like a new biome, a new place to explore. I'm hoping that with future updates, we get more things like the ice cream cart.
You're cooler than a horse. That's something.
The other big thing added to this game is rideable bugs, known as buggies.
Clever. You know, like buggies, the
Like
cars.
Because like buggies, the
Yeah,
cars,
yeah.
and you know, like they're bugs and stuff. So there's two types of buggies in early access. You get the red ant warriors, which you get pretty early in the game, so you're using them frequently throughout. And then there's the orb weaver spiders, which you kind of get more near the end.
You're kind of cute.
The ant buggy's purpose is resource collecting. They can carry building materials, they have their own inventory. They're kind of meant for quickly collecting resources, taking them back to your base. They're really good for being able to like go far distances, grab a bunch of resources, bring them back. Extremely useful, speeds up base building tremendously, huge plus. And then the orb weaver spiders are more about combat as well as certain traversal aspects. There's these spider bridges that you can't really walk on by yourself, and you'll need your orb weaver to travel there. So there's certain locations or shortcuts that you can take advantage with the orb weavers. I like the buggies. I think they're cool. They add a unique flavor. They're not perfect. It can get really messy, especially when you're playing co-op and everyone has a buggy and then you enter combat. It's just a mess. Like, I have no idea what's going on. It's absolute chaos. The other thing about the buggies is that they move really, really quickly. So they're kind of meant to be the main way in which you traverse the park, which makes sense because the park is so much bigger in scale than the backyard was. I think this is a positive, but there's like a few kind of interesting negatives I have with it. So an interesting consequence of using the buggy all the time is that I actually think the game feels a little less scary. Something I love about the first Grounded is that it's kind of like a horror game in a weird way, and there's still that element to it, especially when you're in caves and you don't have your buggy with you. But when you encounter a really dangerous creature in the wild, because you have your buggy, you can kind of just run away from them. It's this trade-off where like I can explore way more, and I don't need to build as many bases around because I can just quickly travel the map, and I think all that stuff is great, but then I also feel like it's not as dangerous because if I see something really dangerous, I can just kind of run away. So that's a tough balance to strike, and I'm curious how other people are gonna feel about it and if that's something Obsidian's gonna tweak, but that's just like a thing I kind of noticed is that I don't quite feel the same sense of danger that I felt because the buggies kind of alleviate that for me. Grounded 2 is, of course, a crafting game, and the crafting here is left largely untouched, which is maybe my biggest disappointment with this early access version of Grounded 2 so far. There's obviously new materials, and there's like the occasional new object and weapon, but like nothing's really new. Like the loop is the exact same. And I'm not saying they need to overhaul it, like it does work in the first game and it still works here, it's still fun, but it doesn't feel like there's a new tool, a new resource, a change that dramatically evolves the game in a major way. So I'm hoping that that might also come in a future update. Probably the biggest change to the way the crafting works is that you no longer have individual tools like a shovel and a wrench. You actually have a thing called an Omni tool, which can basically do all of those things, and it doesn't actually take up an inventory slot. It's just context sensitive now, so you'll just like go up to an object and hit the button, and it'll automatically pull out your tool and start doing that. I do like that change for the most part because it means I don't have to worry as much about constantly maintaining my tools. It also means that I have freer inventory slots for picking up materials as well as having weapons. I do think some of the context specific stuff can be like a little awkward, especially like when I'm trying to repair a thing, and because it's the same button to like activate it, so sometimes I'm activating it when I'm repairing it. That can be a little annoying, but for the most part, I do like the direction of the Omni tool. But perhaps my biggest disappointment is the base building. The base building is largely untouched. There are new types of walls and materials you can make. You can make like pine needle floors and walls and all that, and it's fun. It's like they look great, but it's still fundamentally the exact same tools. Like my base doesn't really look any different from how my base looked in the first Grounded. I think Grounded's base building mechanics are well made and they're fun, but there are other crafting survival games that do it better and allow for a much greater freedom of expression and how you make your bases look. And that was something that I was really hoping Grounded 2 would evolve, because I like building bases and I want to make more elaborate, complex structures. I want to make them look beautiful. And so as someone who felt like I kind of hit the limitations of the first game, seeing that they haven't really changed that much yet, a little disappointing. So I'm really hoping that that is something that they add in a future update, because I want to build more complex and cool bases. The last thing that they've kind of tweaked and added is the combat. So combat, it's mostly the same. What Obsidian says they're trying to do is add more of an emphasis on like roles or like classes. It's still very flexible, where you can, craft any weapon and you can pick any mutation you want, but they want them to have more synergy. For example, I decided to kind of go the rogue, and where I have the spider dual daggers, and by using the dual daggers in combination with the right spider armor and certain mutations, I was able to get all these like really sick, like double damage critical bonuses, and I just like became an absolute powerhouse. And it's cool, it's fun. It does feel like there is a difference compared to the first game, but I think they could take it even further. It's still, at the end of the day, felt like I was gonna just find the one that did the most damage and pick that, rather than truly finding the right role. For example, I tried out the mage class this time because I didn't really like the mage stuff in the first game, and thought, okay, I would like to try it again. So I picked those, and they're cool. You can do this like big area of effect attack, and you can deal all this damage. But at the end of the day, my daggers were still more efficient for killing creatures, so I just kind of switched back to them. I think in particular, the mage class needs more work to really make it more appealing. And I'd like to see them take the combat even further and really, really emphasize differences in why you would want to pick one over the other.
Down for the count. My buggy's life totaled.
Grounded 2 is an early access, so it has a few bugs, let's say. Of course, I'm not going to judge the game too harshly for these because it's not finished, but more I just kind of want to point out for you, the player, that you might experience some of these bugs, specifically the buggies themselves. They're a little buggy. We had a really bad one with my co-op partner where randomly the buggy just decides to leave and unassign themselves to my co-op partner, which meant they had to walk all the way back to the base, and I had to kind of just be there next to them on my buggy and be like, hey, you want to ride? Oh, you can't. It only fits one. Sorry, you gotta walk home. So that sucked. Hopefully they can patch that out. There was also a really bad one where we were supposed to kill some specific enemies for a certain objective, and those enemies then disappeared and never respawned. So there's actually an objective that I was never able to finish, which is quite annoying. I really hope they patch that one so I can go and finish it. A couple weird issues like that. That's probably the most game-breaking of the ones I experienced. It's early access, so be warned. Overall, I did have a really fantastic time with Grounded 2, and I fully plan to play a ton more of it, both in this current early access period and every time they add a new update, I'm gonna be there day one to check it out. Hopefully, they can continue to evolve it and add new things, because at the end of the day, I think my biggest thing about this game is it's great, but it also so far is very familiar to the first game. And look, more Grounded 2, that is enough for me at the end of the day, but I would also like to see it evolve and add new stuff. So I'm gonna be waiting with bated breath for each new update. If you check out the game for yourself, let me know what you think of it. Do you like it? Do you feel like they've added enough? What do you want to see them add in the next update? Hit me up in the comments, I guess. I don't know. We don't really ask for that often, but I think that I want to hear your opinion, fellow Grounded fans. Let me know.
You know, I think Grounded 3 should be.
Yeah.
Since they did 2 Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, they should do Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. Ooh. So Grounded 3, all the kids should be made massive.
And then it just becomes a rampage game.
Yeah, yeah. And in that movie, I think one of the baby picks up the Hard Rock Cafe LED with the neon sign, and I'm pretty sure it blows up and electrocutes them.
Can you believe they made that movie pre-CG? That movie's that movie is a technical masterpiece.
Can you believe they really blew a kid up?
Yeah, they really did that. It's crazy.